Hi, everybody. Good evening. It's Lisa Copeland. See, great things do not rest, including the art of the big sell. And sometimes when you get these rock star guests like what I have to catch them at any time that I can. And Dr. Lisa Walker is one busy gal. And I want to introduce you to my friend and to a woman who I think is absolutely extraordinary. And Lisa Walker, Dr. Walker, how are you tonight?
I am great, Lisa. So wonderful to be with you.
Well, thank you. I will tell you, my friend, you and I have had a hard time connecting as we're just both such busy gals.
I know. I watch you flying all over the place while I'm doing my thing.
Well, and today, I've got a lot of car dealers as clients. I've got a couple of them trying to get to number one in the country. And they're in different parts of the country. So I've been doing these crazy Zoom, like rah sales meetings, like gotta go.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of sitting here waiting on sales numbers, kind of like when I was a car dealer. So that's pretty fun and crazy.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, the first time you and I met, I absolutely fell in love with you. I think you're one of the most amazing women that I've ever met. And I don't say that very often, and I don't say it lightly. You have a story that will inspire everybody who watches this. I mean, your story is, you can't make it up.
You can't
make it up.
You can't make it up. Yeah.
I'm just telling you right now. I mean, so I don't want to steal your thunder, but can I just start with the fact at 11 years old in Jamaica, you got on a bus, you went to the courthouse and you found your birth certificate. I always like to open up with like the big sell, the big thing. I'm going to let you fill in the backstory. And normally I don't take people back to their childhood because who wants to hear about somebody's childhood? But your childhood is like amazing.
It's phenomenal. Let me say right back at you, Lisa. The first time I met you, I fell in love with you. Those legs, the hair, the eyes, the everything, the brilliance. Yeah. And then I saw you on stage and you just captivated me. So yeah, good for those folks who get to have you supporting them.
Well, so, thank you.
Lisa, it was actually 9.5 that happened. I was this tiny, skinny little kid with big forehead. That's kind of all I had, my big forehead with my hair pulled back. And at age 9.5, I really had to go on my own. So to back up a bit, at around age 3 months, my birth mother felt she wasn't able to take care of me. She really didn't share that with anyone, but she left me with my nanny, who is my mom, and she's an angel. No doubts, no questions about that. My mom is downright an angel. She had young kids of her own while she was taking care of me, and she took me in as her child. She took me in as her 4th child. So I'm number 4 of 5 children from Millicent. And Millicent's mother before her, who we all call Granny affectionately, she was the mama angel. And she was the love of my life. And so when my mother, Millicent, my adopted mom, went off to the US to work to take care of her children, which is common in Jamaica. Back then, it was pretty common for that to happen. Mom got the opportunity to come to the US to work, take care of her kiddos. And so her mother stepped up and took care of her kids. So Granny was my everything. Now, back then in Jamaica, we're talking, this was in the 70s. In order to get into high school, everyone had to take what was then called the common entrance exam. And getting into high school was the only way to give you a chance to get to college. And we had very few colleges in Jamaica, at least at that time. And so getting in was like your golden ticket to life. But first, you've got to get that silver ticket to high school, right? And before high school, you've got to take the common entrance. So with only a few weeks before the scheduled common entrance, we found out that Lisa didn't have a birth certificate to register for the common entrance. And not only that, they weren't even sure if I was registered at birth. Go figure.
Wow.
So yes, and so my high school teacher, my elementary school teacher, Mrs. Johnson, said, Lisa, back then, if you showed any kind of brilliance, you were considered bright. So she said, you're one of the brightest kids in my class and you have to take the common entrance. By this time, I knew I had to because Granny told me I had to. And so in my mind, the common entrance is a must. I've got to figure it out. I've got to do this. Well, come time for me to go to Spanish Town, which is where the registrar's office is, where all documents such as birth certificates are held and issued. Granny got sick and there was no one to go with me but we were determined, she and I both, that I'm going to get this and that I can do this on my own. So Granny, with her kindness, she literally infiltrated my brain and allowed me to believe that I could do this, 9.5 years old. And she planned for me to take this little rickety old country bus, because that's what they look like. If you could ever see one of those on the internet, the Jamaican old bus, and see what they look like, you would laugh yourself silly. So I walked early in the morning before dawn from my grandmother's house to the bus stop and got on the bus. To my surprise, I got on the bus and the bus was already full. Didn't realize that all these folks are headed to the city just like I was. So here I was, this tiny little kid, having to hang on to the rails overhead. I felt like a little rubber band twisting back and forth. Again, you've got to see Jamaican roads in the 70s, tiny winding roads. They're
not much different now, Lisa.
Oh my goodness. Well, Lisa, we have some highways now.
That's true.
We do have some highways now. But back then, these were tiny, crazy, scary roads. And, you know, so recently I had to write about this. I chose to write about this, and all the emotions were coming back as I wrote about it and I shared the story with others. And I remember thinking, well, this bus driver can't stop again to pick up anyone else on this bus. And he kept stopping and stopping. And after about an hour and a half or so, I was just wedged between people. And the last time he stopped, two women who were voluptuous came on the bus, and they came and stood right next to me, and I was squashed in. At moments, I felt when the bus would turn like I was sinking into something soft. Next moment, I was hitting a brick wall. And that was the ride to Kingston. I got to Spanish Town, got off the bus, got in the building, and went up to the counter, told the clerk, I gave her all the information I had. My name is Lisa Miko. I gave my birth mother's name, and I gave the only portion of my father's name that I knew, which was the last name, because my name was Miko, his is Miko. Well, this poor woman, sweet lady, she had this cherubic face with a big, bright smile. And I was thinking that she had everything she needed. I gave her all the information I had. So she's going to be coming back to me quickly with my birth certificate. Well, an hour passed, a couple of hours passed. I kept asking people sitting in the waiting area what time it was. And each time the clock is ticking and no birth certificate. At points, she went on to help other folks because she couldn't find mine. Then about lunchtime, she said to me, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to find this for you. And you may have to come back with grown-ups with the full information because I can't find anything for you. My heart's racing, but in my head, I believe I'm going to get this because Granny said I'm going to get my birth certificate, and also because I know I've got to take the common entrance exam. Well, 4 o'clock came, no birth certificate. The bus is then returning to my little town, Charlestown, at about 5 o'clock. And sometime after 4:30, as I was sitting there, by this time, my heart is just pounding in my chest. I didn't want myself, I couldn't make myself believe that she was not going to be able to find my birth certificate. So all I could do was just think, she's going to find this, she's going to find it. And at a certain point, I saw her turn around and she was walking towards the counter. Then I saw a smile on her face. And I leapt off that bench so fast and rushed to the counter. And in her hand, she had a piece of paper and she said, I think I found it. She took it from a brown folder. Now, I'm 53 years old, and this happened when I was 9.5 years old. And when I talk about it now, I can see it as clear as it was yesterday. Her beautiful cherubic face with this big, bright smile, this warm, engaging smile, and this piece of paper in her hand. And she was saying, I think I found it. Well, come to find out, the reason she had such a hard time is I had the wrong birth date. So for 9 years, I was going by the wrong birth date. I had the wrong spelling for my mother's name. And I had I did not have my father's first name, just his last name. So she had pieces of information. And somehow this angel of a woman, detective of a woman, pieced that together. She must have seen the hopefulness on my face. She must have heard the desperation.
She had to have been your guardian angel because there were no computers back then. She had to be looking through a stack of papers in a brown file.
Stack after stack. They had ladders back then. Where she would climb on the ladder and she'd pull down stack after stack. And I could see her sorting because I kept my eyes on her all day. I watched her every movement. I saw every person she spoke to. I watched every folder she pulled out. I watched as she wrinkled her brows when she couldn't find stuff, when she put stuff back. So when she came back to me with that paper, that was God's angel standing in front of me saying, I found this. And Lisa, that was my ticket to high school, because I knew, honestly, with Granny's support and Mrs. Johnson, my teacher's support, I knew I could pass the common entrance. I just knew I could do that. I just needed to get that paper. And so when I got that paper in my hand, that ride back home on the bus to Charlestown, which in the morning as I was coming into the city was awful. It was smelly. I felt like I was going to faint. That ride back home was sheer joy. It was just sheer joy, because I had in my hand what I could take home and show Granny was this thing that was going to be my ticket to my education and to my life. And so that was, I think, for me, the first big obstacle and hurdle in life that I had to push through, climb over, do whatever I needed to get to the next step of my life. That was it.
How many people at 9.5 years old have the foresight? Now, I know Granny told you needed it, but I think a lot of people told me I needed things at 9.5 years old. I would not have gotten on a bus and gone out and gotten it. I mean, just the sheer tenacity of that. I personally think that it was ordained somehow, some way, because you were meant to do great things. So bring us forward. So how did you get, so I know you went through high school in Jamaica, am I right?
I did.
And then you went to college. You came to the US to come to college. Is that correct?
I did. So I went to high school in Jamaica, got into my high school of choice, worked really hard, did really well, and was able to get into a number of high schools, colleges rather, here in the US. When I first got to I got into a bunch of colleges that cost a lot of money and couldn't afford it, which is not unusual for foreign students coming here, because we have to pay, rightly so, out-of-state tuition, which quite often it's twice the cost or close to twice the cost of the regular tuition. And then you've got to pay your health insurance. You must have health coverage to be here. So for me, the mere fact that I could be attending an American university was a miracle. And so I took that opportunity as a one-time opportunity, and I worked like crazy. I worked like crazy, Lisa, because I had to make this happen. I had to do this for myself. I also had to do this for Mom, and I had to do this for Granny, because those were the folks who made me feel, believe, and know that I could do this.
So when you say you worked like crazy, did you go and get a job? Were you able to actually pay and support this tuition and the health insurance, or did you receive any scholarships?
I had to work like crazy. I was the #1 telemarketer in Bridgeport, Connecticut for Computer Processing Institute. And I am so proud of that, because every week when they tallied up, I was #1. I learned how to speed dial, make telephone calls without ever putting that phone on the receiver. That was the old days where you're dialing up, and I knew how to talk to those folks. I developed the ability to basically charm young people into believing that their way for the future is to take some sort of computer training, to get into that computer school, to learn skills, to better themselves. And I was good at it. Why? I needed to pay my tuition. I needed to pay my insurance. I needed to do
you were purpose driven. Now, is English your first language?
Yes. Okay. English is my first language. So I did not have that barrier, thank goodness. And I believe that really helped me in college. An additional way I made money is I tutored nursing students. And back then I was making decent money doing that, because that was $15 per hour.
Yeah.
I almost felt rich as a college student. Tutoring.
How much was tuition back then? I'm just curious. So were you at the University of Texas?
No, Rhode Island.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Rhode Island College. Yes. And so back then I'm thinking, I should remember the number, because that was so painful to pay. But I'm going to say it's maybe around $10,000, $15,000. I don't remember for sure. It was
a lot of money for someone who's making $15 an hour.
A lot of money. Well, my mom, my angel, Millicent, worked like crazy to make sure that all her kids could go to college. And I was, one of her kids. So she helped me. My older sister, Rita, who's a nurse, she helped as well. So I'm from a family where we help each other. It's like one hand helping the other up. And, I've done the same thing and continue to do the same thing with family members who are young people still in college, where part of my responsibility as now a mature person in the family is to help some of the younger ones, because that's how I was supported. So, yeah.
Well, when I met you, one of the things you really stressed to me is that you so much believe that coming to this country was an opportunity, that you were so grateful to be able to come to the United States, work your rear end off to receive, not only do you have an undergraduate, but master's and a Ph.D. That's not easy. But, what I loved about you the most when I met you was that you saw the opportunity that America afforded you. And it's unfortunate sometimes our own citizens don't see that. But I've got, you and a couple friends of mine from Kenya that came in, and it's just like, you know what? We are so grateful to be here. This is the greatest country in the world, and we're going to do whatever it takes to be tax-paying, wonderful people, be educated here, and be proud to be Americans. And that's, of course, what stole my heart with you. One of the many, many things.
Absolutely. You hit the nail on the head. Not only has it been a great opportunity, it is such a privilege, I feel, to be given the chance, the opportunity to be here and to take advantage of all the great things that are being offered, and at the same time giving back. So for me, it's like, wow, this amazing country that opened its arms wide to me, I've got to give back. So part of that is doing well. So whether it's in school, work, community service, with my neighbors, no matter what it is, for me, it's a great opportunity to say thank you to this amazing place that's given me the chance to spread my wings. And I continue to do so. Every day, I'm still mesmerized by the opportunities that are available, mesmerized by it.
Well, tell us about your amazing family. And I know your husband also came from Jamaica.
So my husband and I, we've been together since preschool, huh?
I said, he's another genius. I mean, your family.
Oh, he's a bit of a brainiac. He's a bit of a brainiac, resides in his left brain. So he's high tech, Mr. Numbers, math person. We went to high school together. And I fell for him because he was the smartest kid in our class. I'm usually attracted to the brains before the muscles. So, yeah. So we've been together for 35, 36 years now, been married for 28 years. And like me, Peter is highly focused on education. We finished high school together. He started college in Jamaica, did his engineering degree, his first degree there. And, his professors and others saw just how driven and passionate he was and how smart he was, and just really wanting to take on more and more. And one of his professors found a way to get him an interview with Brown University, Ivy League Brown, go figure.
Wow.
The computer science department at Brown University, which is, that's as good as it gets. And this young man, he was able to get a full ride. By that time, we were married and we'd had our first child, Matthew. We got pregnant pretty quickly. That was a oops. So there was Matthew, and Peter got his scholarship to do his master's at Brown. Well, as soon as he got there, he realized that he wanted more than a master's degree. So he ended up finishing 2 masters and a PhD in computer science and computer engineering at Brown in record time. Like record time. It was, So both of us are driven. Both of us are hardworking. Peter has done amazing stuff in the tech world.
Well, I was going to say, both of you are entrepreneurs in your own right.
Yes. Yeah.
So tell us about some of your entrepreneurial ventures.
Okay.
Living the American dream. I love your story. I can't even tell you how much I love your story.
So, after I completed my studies at UT, I taught at UT for a while and loved that. And I'm a teacher at heart. I really enjoy the academic environment. However, I looked at the reality of having 2 kids who I also want to put through good school. Peter and I both wanted to. And so we decided that starting my own private practice in psychology was the way to go. And so I continued to teach at UT for a little while. However, what happened fortuitously for me was that my practice really took off.
Shocker.
We were told in grad school that it'll take you a year or two to build up your practice fully. Well, I knew that I wanted to support families who were going through difficult relationship issues, especially tough divorce issues. And I wanted to be the clinician who supported these families so that they could protect their children from the harsh realities of divorce and also protect their own integrity so that they can start a new life after divorce. And so I did a lot of studying around that post my doctorate work. And I realized that in order to do this work well and to find the right clients that I needed, I had to align myself with some of the top law firms in town, family law firms. So I set out to do just that. I would call managing partners and senior partners of all the major family law firms in town, and I would either invite them out to coffee, tea, lunch, or whatever their time could allow. And I shared with them the service that I could provide for them to enhance the level of service that they currently provided for their clients. And a few of them took that and said, absolutely, we'll try you out. And Lisa, no joke about it, within months, I had law firms calling me. So we hear about what you're doing with such and such firm. Can we have a conversation? Absolutely. And within a couple of years, if you were to ask any of the top family law firms in town, Dr. Lisa Walker was the go-to person to facilitate really intricate divorce cases. So oftentimes these folks were folks with huge businesses, or they're running major organizations, or they're celebrities or politicians, and they need their process to be protected and to be well managed. And so for a number of years I did that. I was in court testifying a lot, doing that until I wasn't enjoying it anymore. And I felt that, God had called me to that area to serve for a while. I served in that area for about 12 years and then decided to transition into coaching. The coaching kind of happened organically because many of my clients going through divorce appreciated the support I provided for them and then invited me to work with them on work-related issues. So that's how I kind of entered the C-suite arena and started coaching executives. And
you have additional credentials when it comes to your coaching practice.
I do. So when I decided that I wanted to formalize the coaching piece of it, I didn't want to just rely on my clinical credentials. So of course, knowing me, I love school. I researched and found what I felt was the best program. And so I headed off to Columbia Business School.
Of course you did. Of course you did. Ph.D. from the University of Texas, and then on to Columbia Business School. Oh,
Lisa.
Everybody who's watching this right now, I hope you guys all feel as I do.
Lisa, I've got to admit, there's a little bit of craziness with that too, okay? I have got to admit. So anyway, it was the best program for me. It was highly focused, really intense, really in-depth. I met some amazing people from all around the world. The school focuses on recruiting students from across the globe. So for example, in my cohort, there were about 26 of us and they were from 17 different countries. So learning in that environment was just amazing. And they were from all backgrounds, and different areas of life. And so that was an amazing experience. And that training then opened up additional doors for me. I went on to do a number of certifications so that I can assess folks both on a personality level, leadership strength, emotional intelligence. So I use a lot of those tools. And quite often clients will come to me because they want to go deeper. They're looking for work that will allow them to really, for example, take a look at the dark side of one's personality. So for example, I'm an extrovert. And so it's easy for me to talk and I can engage in conversations freely. Well, there are times when that can get in the way. And we need to know that and understand what that looks like and manage that well. So many of my clients who are in the C-suite, for example, as they're leading more at higher and higher level, they find themselves sometimes challenged in managing relationships effectively. So that's where I come in with all these tools and my background and experience, and I'm able to help them create a path, develop a plan to help them manage relationships more effectively so that their teams can be more productive. And that's my sweet spot right now.
Well, I'm going to put you on the hot seat, and I didn't tell you I was going to do this. I'm really fired up about the fact that people in this country cannot have a conversation, a reasonable conversation. If you and I don't agree about something, we can't be friends anymore. I'm going to insult you on social media. Like, I'm kidding. I would never do that. But it's just, why has this country become so polarized? And I'm not even going to ask you why, but with all of your expertise, what is it we can do to stop the polarization, what's going on in our country?
Well, I think
it burdens me to my soul.
Yeah, and I know that, Lisa, and I see because of how you manage your relationships with others, including myself, that this is a challenge for you to see people behaving in this way. I think we've lost our way a bit, quite a bit. I think we have somehow lost sight of our ability to manage emotions effectively. And when I say emotions, I mean everything we do in terms of how we show up. That's as a result of our self-awareness. First of all, how aware we are of how we're showing up and impacting others, and our ability to manage that effectively. And to the extent that we're able to manage our emotions, we then manage how we show up and we manage relationships more effectively. And I think part of it is, I think as a people, we've been traumatized by a lot of stuff we've seen and experienced. And folks sometimes aren't taking the time to settle down and consider, how am I contributing to this? How did I relate earlier today to the mailman, or to the store clerk, or to the person who cut me off in line, or to the person who was impatient as I was at the stoplight? How did I respond to that? And so it's less about the other person and more about us. And I think we're in such a hurry and we're so rushed that we're not taking the time to slow down and be mindful, and then making a decision that we are going to do what we can do on our part to effect change, meaning change in how we present ourselves, how we communicate with others, how we listen to others and what we're listening for. So we're not doing as well as that as we ought to. And interestingly enough, a lot of the work I do with leaders, we're talking about communication. I was sitting just this afternoon with a senior VP of one of the top tech companies here in town, and he's a brilliant leader. And the work that we're doing, it's all around, how do I communicate more effectively? How do I manage this with the other executives as I work with them? How do I manage this with my teams? How do I inspire and motivate without being, bossy, without being harsh?
Well, and that's what I wanted to ask you about. That was my next big question. I couldn't wait. And I hope you don't send me a bill for this podcast. But there's this whole bully mentality going on. Mm-hmm. And I think we're seeing the backlash from it in this country, where our leaders are bullies, bosses are bullies, and people are afraid to do or say their piece because they work for a bully. Yeah. Now, how do you recommend, what would be your advice to somebody out there who works for a bully, an absolute bully? Yeah. Do they quit their job? Do they go get a different one? Obviously, if that person is your boss or signs your paycheck and they're a bully, there's nothing you're going to be able to do, because they're just going to make your life even more hell. So what would be your advice if somebody was in that situation?
Lisa, sometimes you have to quit. So there are times when you assess the situation and it's not the right place for you. Other times it's an opportunity for you to shine. And I'm working with a woman right now, and she is partner in a major financial firm here in town. And she is in exactly that situation where her perception is that she's being bullied. And I've done a 360 interview where I have spoken with 8 other folks in her company to get a better understanding of how she shows up in the business. And the idea behind that is to understand, how are folks seeing her differently than how she is perceiving herself? And so the information that I gathered created a really good story for me. And it really confirmed her perception of what's going on. And she is, in fact, being bullied. And so part of the work that we are doing right now, she has no intention of leaving that business. She has poured a lot of sweat into that company, and she wants to be there. And she's determined that she is going to manage the way that she has been showing up. And she has acknowledged that quite often she has been bullying back. She has modeled some of what she's seen in other leaders. And somehow in her mind, she thought for a long time that being a boss lady meant that you had to be tough, you had to be a bit abrasive. And she's learning now, based on some of the feedback she's gotten, that that has not helped any of the relationships that she's tried to cultivate. In fact, it's hurt those relationships. So she has now committed herself to doing the introspection that she needs to do, so that she can manage how she shows up. And we're seeing changes. It's not huge changes as yet because we've only been working together for a couple of months. But we just met yesterday again for one of our last meetings. And she is already seeing changes in terms of how the environment feels, in how others are responding to her. And they're wanting to know what's going on with you. I'm going to call her Debbie. Debbie, something is different. Well, Debbie is now carefully managing how she's saying things, what she's saying, her timing. She's listening more carefully. She's showing empathy. And these were things that for a while, she was so focused on the end result and productivity that she wasn't spending enough time on managing those relationships well. So on the one hand, there are times when we do have to leave that environment. And there are other times when we can say, what can I do to impact this environment? And you can't do much about the other, but you can do a lot about self.
Well,
right?
And I love that you said that, because I'm sitting here thinking, what is the big idea? What is the big takeaway? And you control what you can control.
Yes.
And you can't control the bully that you work for. You can only control your reaction to the bully. And you can control it one or two ways. I hear you say, you work on yourself and you work on your reactions, or you work on finding a new job. It's kind of fun too, right? Because you're not going to change the bully.
Yes.
Because the bully's probably been a bully for a long time. And we're seeing this in the schools. I want to ask another question. We're going a bit over time, but my goodness, it would cost me $1,000 an hour to sit in your chair. So I'm going to go ahead and do it on Facebook. I am personally so proud of these kids in Florida and that have taken up the cause, the movement, where, I feel like that they feel like, well, you know what? My government has not taken care of me or protected me, and my parents couldn't do it. Obviously not because their parents are bad people. They just, whatever, stuff's not changing.
Yeah.
And seeing the change today, I saw that Dick's Sporting Goods is no longer going to sell these semi-automatic rifles. And I thought, somebody's at least taking a stand. And I don't want to get into gun rights because that's a political thing. But what I love is that this younger generation, people have said so much about these millennials, and I think this is even a generation below that. Oh, they just want to live in their parents' basements. You know what? But I believe, and I want to see if you agree with me, that this is the generation that's going to change the world.
Absolutely.
They are taking matters in their own hands, but peacefully, lawfully. That's what I'm proud of them. They're not protesting in the streets. They're not rioting. They're saying, we want to incite change. Like, I get chills talking about these kids. I told my daughter the other day, I said, I'm going to get on a plane. I'm going to Florida. I've got a good friend, a car dealer. His name's Adam Aarons. He's a Subaru dealer in the Northeast, very dear friend of mine. And I asked him if he could be on my show next Monday. He said, no, Lisa, because he lives in Florida. His dealership's in Boston. He said, no, Lisa, I'm going to be in Washington, D.C. because I'm talking to our government. And I'm going to stand with these kids. And I'm like, Adam, I'm so proud of you. Like, I would go with you.
Yes.
Kids are doing it the right way. But what is your hope? What is your feeling as the professional that this next generation is going to do? I think they're going to change the world. I've never said that before, but damn, I'm proud of them.
They are phenomenal, Lisa. It gives me chills. They are phenomenal. And part of what they're saying to us is that to a certain extent, our generation, we have failed them to a certain extent. We have failed them
terribly.
Yes. And so they're taking charge.
Yes.
And we should be proud.
And support them, right?
Yes, we should be on our knees praying for them. We should be on the phone talking to those that we can reach, whether it's the kids who are in Florida or the kids here in Texas or New York, Philadelphia, where we should be there supporting them and say, I've got your back, because they are our future and we need that. We need them so much more than we know it. So I am fiercely proud. I have a daughter, almost 21, and she is excited about what's going on. And I'm excited for her that she gets to be part of this generation, that they're the change makers.
Well, think about, I was doing a podcast the other day and I was talking to somebody and they said, think about the change happens. You look at the civil rights movement and some of those things, the change happens with the young generation. And I think in our case, because you and I are about the same age, I think it skipped our generation.
Yeah.
I think that we became change makers as we got older, but I don't know about you, but when I was in high school or I was in college, I wasn't going to go out and march. I didn't care. I had, we were living large in the 80s in Dallas, Texas.
Yeah.
And these are kids who have the loss, it just, to me, it's unbelievable. I cannot imagine losing 15 of my friends and 2 of my teachers. And then the fact that the sheriff's department was out front, or, whatever, the police officers out front, and they didn't go in. I mean, how they're dealing with their anger, to me, so impressive. It's so constructive, know. And
I tend to think of things, Lisa, quite often through the prism of obstacles or challenges. And what I'm seeing with these young people is that life has thrown before them this huge obstacle. They were faced with this huge trauma at their school, this trauma in their lives, and they are leveraging this obstacle. They're leveraging the obstacle of politicians' inactivity. They're leveraging the obstacle of a society that's become complacent, and they're using that to catapult us as a society into a different stratosphere, right? So they have figured out that they have the power to get over, get under, get around, or do something with this obstacle. And I love it.
But lawfully, they're doing it lawfully.
Absolutely.
I think the worst thing they did is some of them walked out of school, at a certain time. That's okay.
Yeah.
It's the worst thing these kids do, versus being, and tell me this, and tell me if I'm right, because you've got the advanced degrees to back up what I'm saying. But I feel like when people get desperate is when they don't feel like they're being heard, they're being acknowledged, they're being listened to. And then that's when I think things turn really, really ugly with different religions or socioeconomic, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And so I believe that we have got to embrace these young people. We've got to encourage them, listen to them, and try to help them incite change so that it stays on the path that it's on.
Yes. Yes. We have to acknowledge them. We have to support them. We have to lift them up, and we have to give them the resources as well that they need to do the things, to take the actions they need to take, because a lot of the activities that they're engaged in, traveling from one place to the next, it's costly. It's costing them. It's costing their parents. And so you have some folks who have formed campaigns to raise money, and we have to be willing to step up, because this is not just about them, it's for us as well.
Well, I know. It's unbelievable. I mean, we've gone over tonight. I just love talking to you.
I do too.
Yeah, but getting your perspective, not just from your heart, but from your educational background. Because I think it's going to be critical to this next generation, and that we keep doing what we're doing, right?
Yes.
Anyways, so tell me, how can everybody who's watching this, who's listening to this show, how can they work with you? How can they get a hold of you? How do they find you?
That's a good question. And thank you for that, Lisa. So can find me on my website, drwalkerconsulting.com. Can also look me up, Lisa Walker, on LinkedIn. And so basically, I'm local here in Austin, but work nationally. On the speaking arena, I do workshops and training and executive coaching. I am also called in quite a bit to facilitate difficult conversations between business partners and do quite a bit of strategic planning for companies, especially startup companies, as they're doing their annual strategic planning. So I'm all over the place, always eager to meet new folks, always eager to volunteer and to help as well. But yeah, you can find me on my website at drwalkerconsulting.com.
Well, I cannot thank you enough for your expertise, your graciousness, your amazing story, all of that.
Thank you, Lisa.
Yes. And
love, admiration, and respect is mutual.
Well, and so when you get back, let's get together, because
I'd love that.
See your beautiful face.
Same here. You take care, my dear.
All right. Thank you. And thank you to all of our listeners and all the people that are watching this show.
Thank you.
Live right now. This is being recorded as a podcast. It'll be sent up and be edited, and of course go out onto iTunes. So again, thank you everybody very much for always supporting the art of the big sell, and thank you to our amazing, fabulous guest, Dr. Lisa Walker. Until next time, bye-bye, y'all.